We've been in love for 5 years. Nathan finally agreed to marry me. We hurried to the hospital to tell my seriously ill mother the good news. On the way, Nathan received a call from Sophia, immediately turned the car around and took me to the bar. Sophia's bar had just opened. There wasn't enough staff, so he asked me to help serve drinks while I was being harassed in a private room. He was having fun with Sophia in the next room. The hospital suddenly informed me that my mother's condition was critical. In order to get there as soon as possible, I jumped from the 3rd floor without thinking, but when I arrived at the hospital, my mother had already passed away. All that was left was her cold body. At that moment, I saw Sophia update her Facebook status. Whenever I'm in danger, he'll always stand in front of me like a superhero. In the photo, we're leaning sweetly against each other. I felt heavy-hearted. I took off the engagement ring on my hand and sent it to the crematorium with my mother's remains. Then, I gave Sophia a thumbs up. I hope you guys will always be together. Don't bother anyone else anymore. Less than 2 minutes after I left the message, Nathan's phone rang. Emily, what you said just now really made me feel uncomfortable. If you hadn't caused a scene at the bar, annoying Sophia's guests, Sophia wouldn't have been bothered by her guests. Nathan said in an orderly tone. You hurry up and come over and apologize to Sophia. I'm holding my mother's ashes in my hands. My heart is filled with heavy sorrow. I said coldly, I won't apologize. Nathan's voice suddenly raised. With anger, he said, Emily, if you don't apologize, don't expect me to marry you. I nodded and said, then don't have the wedding. There was silence on the other end of the phone for a while. Nathan didn't expect me to really agree to cancel the wedding. Sophia said in a soft voice, Nathan, Emily must have said that on purpose. She just wants you to go and appease her. I'm fine. Go to her, Nathan said in a cold tone. Emily, I'm telling you clearly, this kind of playing hard to get won't work on me. Don't come crying to me when the time comes. I didn't want to listen to him anymore. I hung up the phone directly. A few days passed. Nathan didn't call once. He was obviously waiting for me to give in, to go and apologize on my own initiative. He won't be waiting this time. In the past, I was so accommodating to Nathan. It was largely because of my mother. My mother was very sick. She hoped to see me get married before she passed away. Find someone to depend on for the rest of my life. That way, she could rest in peace. Now that my mother is dead, I never got to see her one last time. Thinking about the way she looked when she died without being able to close her eyes, I feel a heavy pain in my heart. At that moment, I heard a noise at the door. Nathan pushed open the door and walked in. He was holding a small cake in his hand. He handed it to me and said, This is your favorite strawberry cake. I looked at the cake. Its original delicate shape had been dug up in a mess. Half an hour ago, Sophia posted a photo in her circle of friends. It was a picture of her holding the whole strawberry cake and eating it. I looked away. I said coldly, Get out. You're not welcome here. Nathan's face suddenly turned ugly. He looked at Emily in a tone of discontent. Emily, how long are you going to keep this up? It was my bad decision to arrange for you to work as a waitress at Sophia's bar, but you shouldn't have used jumping off a building to affect Sophia's bar business. Sophia is kind-hearted, and she has been speaking for you ever since. She even asked me to come and apologize to you. What more do you want? Apologize. I sneered. Nathan, is this how you apologize? Does anyone apologize with someone else's leftover cake? Nathan froze for a moment. He said, Aren't you always so thrifty? I was amused by his tone of taking things for granted. I couldn't help but say, no matter how thrifty I am, I would never pick up someone else's leftovers. Nathan, Sophia has used you now. I don't want it anymore. Nathan frowned and said to Emily, You were the one who insisted on marrying me. No matter what I said, you also said, if your mother can't see you get married, she won't be able to rest in peace. What? You don't care about your mother anymore? You're just throwing a tantrum. When I talk about my mother, I can't help feeling sad. If she were still here, I would do anything for her. But she's gone. Nathan grabbed my arm and dragged me out of the house. I'll take you to tell your auntie that we're getting married soon. That way she can rest assured. Do you think that's a good idea? Nathan pulled me into the car. He drove straight to the hospital. When we arrived, I wondered how he would react if he heard that my mother had passed away. Would he be shocked or saddened? Nathan lost his mother when he was young. His stepmother treated him badly, and his real father ignored him. When I got together with him, my mother felt sorry for him and his difficult childhood. She treated him like her own son. When Nathan started his own business, he needed money. My mother didn't hesitate to use her entire pension to support him. She was even more worried about his health. She often cooked for him. She made his favorite soup. Nathan therefore especially respected and cared for my mother. I thought we could always live like this, peacefully and happily. But ever since Sophia returned from abroad, everything has changed. Even though my mother is seriously ill, he rarely visits her in the hospital. Halfway through the trip, Sophia's distinctive ringtone started to play again. Nathan answered the phone immediately. His tone of voice unconsciously softened. Sophia, what's wrong? What? Don't move. I'm coming. He slammed on the brakes. I didn't have time to react. I was thrown forward. I felt a sharp pain in my forehead. Before I knew what was happening, Nathan reached over and unbuckled my seatbelt and pushed me out of the passenger seat. Sophia's been in an accident. I need to go over there. I grabbed the door, stared at him, and asked, Nathan, how long has it been since you last visited my mom? Nathan's face showed signs of unease, and then said angrily, Sophia's been in an accident, and you're still arguing about these trivial matters. Auntie wouldn't be as indifferent as you. She would definitely understand me. I shouted. No, because my mom is all ready. Before I could finish my sentence, Nathan pushed my hands away and ran away quickly. I was left standing there, dumbfounded. After a while, Sophia's circle of friends had a new update. She wrote, there was a car accident. I hurt my hand. Luckily, he was the first one to come to my side. In the video, her hand was just slightly scraped on the back. There wasn't even any blood. But Nathan was running around in a panic. He was busy registering and taking her to the doctor. His pain was so obvious that it almost overflowed the screen. I smiled helplessly. I felt a little self-deprecating. In Nathan's eyes, my mother and I were not even comparable to Sophia in the slightest. I turned around and walked towards the cemetery. It took me 3 whole hours to get to my mother's grave. I knelt in front of her tombstone. Tears flowed unstoppably from the corners of my eyes. I said to my mother, Mom, I'm sorry. I was wrong about the person I trusted, and you suffered as a result. Then, I said firmly, Nathan is so ungrateful. I will never let him off lightly. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. I agree to sell you the 20% stake I have at a price of $30 million. Nathan didn't come home for several days in a row. I could see what was going on in Sophia's circle of friends every day. Because Sophia hurt her hand, Nathan cooked for her himself. He cleaned her room. He even washed her underwear. A gentleman doesn't enter the kitchen. Washing and cooking is a woman's job. Emily, you are a good wife and a good mother. You can handle everything at home in an orderly manner. You don't need me to worry about it. Before, I had all kinds of reasons and principles. But at Sophia's place, none of that matters. To be honest, this is the difference between love and not love. If I had seen this before, I would have felt like my heart was being cut with a knife. But now I feel very calm. I know that their current happiness is only superficial. Like foam, it will break if you touch it. These past few days, I had someone look into Sophia's situation abroad. I found out that she spends money extravagantly abroad. She also engages in compensated dating. She even got into gambling. She owes tens of millions in gambling debts. At the shareholders' meeting in 3 days' time, I will present all this evidence to Nathan. Both my career and my love life are going badly. I really want to see how Nathan will handle it. The day before the shareholders' meeting, the wedding company called. They said the wedding photos that Nathan and I had previously booked could be taken. I immediately said I wanted to cancel the booking, but the other party told me that the cancellation must be done in person. I drove to the wedding company. I found Sophia wearing my wedding dress. She was taking wedding photos with Nathan. They were acting intimately, kissing and hugging as the photographer asked them to. After taking a set of photos, Nathan noticed that I was standing in the doorway. He immediately pushed Sophia away. Sophia let out a small scream. She fell to the ground. Nathan immediately picked her up, put her on the sofa, and put an ice pack on her foot. After finishing, he walked over to me, with a stern face. You had a temper tantrum earlier and said you wanted to cancel the wedding photos. I was afraid you would regret it, so I asked Sophia to take your place. You two are about the same height. We can just use AI face replacement software to fix it. I sneered, saying, from what you've just said, I should thank Sophia. Nathan sensed the sarcasm in my words, immediately saying, Emily, Sophia really came to help, and even sprained her ankle. Not only did you not thank her, but you spoke to her with sarcasm. That's rude. Auntie is so gentle and considerate. How could she have a daughter like you? I raised my hand and slapped Nathan hard. I said, you don't deserve to mention my mother. I slapped him in front of so many people. Nathan's pride was hurt. He stared at me with anger in his eyes. He said, Emily, if you don't kneel down and apologize to me today, our wedding will be off. Nathan, our wedding is no longer a weak point for me. Even if you don't cancel it, I will cancel it myself. At the shareholders' meeting tomorrow, I have prepared a special gift. It's a wedding gift for you and Sophia. As I turned to leave, Nathan frowned. He looked a little uneasy, because my mother is very sick. He understood that I really wanted to have a wedding, to reassure my mother, but now I really didn't care. He panicked instead. Nathan reached for his phone to call his assistant, but a soft, white hand gently stroked his cheek. Sophia's eyes were full of worry. She said, how could she be so heartless? Nathan, Emily is simply unreasonable. She is not worthy of you. At that moment, my phone kept vibrating. I received several intimate photos of Nathan and Sophia. I looked at the photos. My heart didn't stir at all. I just calmly took screenshots of them and saved them. The next morning at 9:00, I went to the company to attend the shareholders' meeting. Unexpectedly, Sophia was also sitting in the shareholders' seat. She looked at me with a smug expression. It turned out that Nathan had transferred 5% of his 30% stake to her. I calmly glanced at her. The higher she stands, the harder the fall will be. When everyone was present, I took out a share transfer agreement and announced, I have sold all my shares to Mr. Daniel. From today, Daniel is the largest shareholder of the company. Daniel is the son of a wealthy family in the area. Last year, he set his sights on our company and wanted to buy it. Nathan refused to agree, so he secretly bought some scattered shares. Then he turned his attention to me, because I was the company's second largest shareholder. At that time, Nathan and I were about to get married. I of course refused, but now I can't wait to sever all ties with him. Nathan slammed his hand down on the table. He said sternly, I won't agree to this. I said calmly, it doesn't matter whether you agree or not. These shares are mine. I have the right to dispose of them as I see fit. I took a thick stack of documents out of my bag. I placed it directly in front of Nathan. Nathan, this is a gift for you and Sophia. Nathan stares at the document bag in front of him with confusion. He reaches out to open it. Sophia looks nervous. She quickly stops him. Nathan, let's talk about the gift later. The most important thing now is the shares. She's already too late when she says this. Nathan has already opened the document bag. Dozens of photos fall out of it. The photos of Sophia are completely different from her current delicate appearance. She is wearing heavy makeup, dressed provocatively, and appeared in various entertainment venues abroad with different men. There was also a document showing that Sophia owed tens of millions of dollars in gambling debts at the casino. It also included screenshots of her provoking me on WeChat after she returned to China. Nathan's anger caused the veins on the back of his hand to bulge. He grabbed a stack of photos and slammed them down on Sophia. Didn't you say it was because your parents forced you to settle abroad? When Nathan and Sophia were in a relationship, Sophia told him that her entire family was emigrating. They had to leave. This incident made Nathan never forget her. She became the white moonlight in his heart. In fact, Sophia resented Nathan for being poor. She went abroad to meet rich people. As a result, she overindulged in pleasure. She also became addicted to gambling. She lost tens of millions of dollars. Sophia was obviously guilty. She hurriedly explained, "Nathan, these photos and agreements are all fake. I would never do such a thing. Emily deliberately framed me." She let 2 tears roll down her face. She looked especially aggrieved. I took a USB stick out of my bag. I said to Sophia, "Do you want to watch the video again that you made to pay off your gambling debts?" Sophia's expression suddenly changed from aggrieved to fierce. She grabbed the hot tea on the table and splashed it over me. "Emily, you've gone too far." She moved very quickly. I instinctively closed my eyes and raised my hands to block it. But surprisingly, I didn't feel any pain. Nathan immediately blocked in front of me. The scalding hot tea splashed all over his back. Sophia saw that she missed me. She raised her hand and charged at me. Nathan quickly grabbed her wrist. He pushed her away forcefully. He said, "As long as I'm here, you won't be able to hurt Emily again." Sophia fell to the ground and saw Nathan's angry expression. She tore open the collar of her shirt, revealing the marks on her body. "Nathan, that's not what happened last night at my place." Nathan looked at me unconsciously, explaining, "Emily, She made the first move." I smiled slightly and said, "What's the difference whether Sophia deliberately approached Nathan or Nathan made the first move himself? He did cheat." Sophia then looked at me provocatively and said, "Emily, Nathan said that when you were with him, you didn't act enthusiastic at all." Nathan rushed forward, grabbed her by the neck, and shouted, "Shut up! Don't say another word." Sophia reached out and grabbed Nathan's face. The two of them struggled. Eventually, Nathan used force to control Sophia, and together with the security guard, he drove her out of the company. After he finished dealing with Sophia and came back to find me, I was already gone. As he walked out of the office, he called my phone number, but I had blocked all his contact information. Nathan realized that he had really angered me this time. He felt very scared. Suddenly, he thought of my mother. He knew that I was very filial. If I could just ask my aunt to say a few kind words for him, I would definitely forgive him. Nathan hurried downstairs. He drove straight to the hospital. On the way, he ran 2 red lights. When he arrived at the hospital, he found his mother's bed empty. The nurse told him, "Patient Maggie, 26, died due to complications." Nathan was stunned. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. It took a while before he asked, "When did it happen?" The nurse looked up the medical records. She said, "Ms. Maggie passed away at 9 p.m. on June 28. What a pity. Her daughter was a little late. She didn't get to see her last." Nathan recalled, June 28th was the opening day of Sophia's bar. He had even made his wedding conditional on Emily working as a waitress. No wonder Emily preferred to jump off the 3rd floor. So it was him who had prevented Emily from seeing her aunt for the last time. Nathan walked out of the hospital in a daze. He went straight to Emily's place, but it was empty. He couldn't get through on the phone either. He understood. Emily must hate him now. She will never forgive him. I bought the lilies that my mother loved the most. I placed them in front of her tombstone. I leaned against the tombstone and whispered to my mother, "Mom, I've grown up. I can take care of myself, and I won't let others bully me. Don't worry. Don't worry about me anymore." I hugged my mother's tombstone tightly and kept on talking to her. At that moment, Nathan came to me in a state of disarray and knelt directly in front of my mother's tombstone. He bowed his head 3 times. He looked up. His eyes were full of sadness. He asked me, "Emily, why you didn't tell me about Auntie's death?" I felt uncomfortable at the way he looked at me. I coldly replied, "Who are you? Why should I tell you?" Nathan tightly grasped my hand and said excitedly, "Emily, I know you're still angry with me, but I'm your fiancé. I've always treated your mother like my own. How can you say I'm an outsider?" I broke free of Nathan's hand. "Biological mother. Nathan, how dare you mention this? Since my mother got sick, how many times have you visited her?" 5 times? Nathan tried to explain. "It's because of the busy work at the company. You didn't have time to visit my mother, but you spent all day around Sophia. My mother passed away 10 days ago. You didn't even know." Sophia scratched her hand a little. "But you were busy taking care of her." "When you say that, Don't you feel ridiculous? Facing my questioning, Nathan finally bowed his head. Emily, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to my aunt. I've also caused you a lot of suffering. I'm willing to spend the rest of my life making up for it. I promise. I will never do anything to offend you again. Otherwise, let me suffer the consequences. I looked at him. I said coldly, if you never let me see you again, that would be the best compensation for me. Nathan suddenly became anxious. Emily, Auntie's greatest wish before she died was for you to marry me. Have you forgotten about the cancellation of the wedding? I believe my mother, her spirit in heaven, will understand me. After saying this, I turned around and left. For more than half a year, I was worried about my mother's illness while feeling sad about Nathan and Sophia's ambiguous relationship. Not a single day was happy. I used to think that it was hard to let go of a 5-year relationship. Unexpectedly, after I really let go, I felt much more relaxed. I finally got a good night's sleep. When I woke up, I saw that my phone was full of messages from friends. They were all asking me about Nathan and my wedding. They said that I was too soft-hearted. How could I forgive him so quickly? I froze for a moment. I later realized that Nathan had spread the news that we were getting married next month. I replied to each message and clarified on my friend's circle and social media accounts, explaining that these were all Nathan's wishful thinking and that he and I would never get back together again. Not long after, Nathan called from the company phone. I immediately blocked this number as well. I didn't expect Nathan to be so persistent. After blocking his 28th number, I still answered the phone. Nathan's voice was full of joy. Emily, you finally answered my call. I asked calmly, Nathan, what do you really want? He answered, Emily, I want us to go back to the way we were. We agreed to get married next month. I want to marry you, make you my wife. I laughed out loud at his words. Nathan, are you deaf or just don't get it? I said seriously, I don't love you anymore, and I won't marry you. I just want to stay away from you. Nathan insisted. Emily, you're just saying this out of anger. You used to love me so much. How could you suddenly stop loving me? Nathan, my feelings for you, ever since Sophia came back, they have been gradually consumed by your cold attitude time and time again. Believe it or not, I really don't love you anymore. Nathan could hear the firmness in my tone and the pleading in my voice. Emily, about Sophia, I do feel sorry for you. But I also said, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. You can't even give me that chance. At this point, I had nothing more to say to him. I hung up the phone. In the following days, Nathan called me every day from a different number. I simply turned off my phone. As a result, he came to my house every day and waited for me downstairs. He wouldn't leave until he saw me. That night, I had just returned from a friend's place. A woman with messy hair suddenly rushed at me. As she approached, I noticed that she was holding a sharp fruit knife in her hand. She lunged at me. Sophia gave a resentful smile and said, Emily, you've made my life miserable. Now you can die too. The fruit knife lunged at my chest. Instinctively, I raised my hand to block it, but the pain never came. The tip of the knife stopped in front of me. Sophia was being held tightly from behind by Nathan. She twisted her wrist and quickly stabbed the knife behind her. Nathan let out a low grunt, but still didn't let go. He looked at me and said hurriedly, Go and call security. I snapped back to reality and quickly ran towards the security booth in the community. It wasn't long before 2 security guards came over with anti-riot gear and quickly subdued Sophia. The police who arrived shortly afterwards handcuffed her and took her away. Nathan had been stabbed twice in the lower back. The situation was critical. He was immediately rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. After 2 hours of surgery, he finally emerged from danger. When he woke up, he saw me sitting by the bed. He wanted to raise his hand to touch my face, but since he was lying down and couldn't reach it, his hand stopped in front of me. I looked down at him and said, Nathan, you need to rest now. Nathan's hand slowly lowered. There was a hint of disappointment in his tone. He said, Emily, you haven't called me Nathan in a long time, and I haven't hugged you in a long time. My heart was filled with mixed emotions. Originally, I only felt deep resentment and disgust for Nathan, but just now, he risked his own safety to save me. He whispered, Emily, let's forget all the unhappy things. Let's start over from today, okay? His eyes were red. They were filled with tears. Emily, I was misled by Sophia before. I did things that hurt you. Now the damage is done. No matter how much I regret it, I can't turn back time. I just want to make it up to you. Can you give me this chance? I shook my head. No, you said the damage is done. No matter what you do, it can't be undone, because you can't bring my mother back to life. Nathan, I can only say that I don't hate you anymore, but it's impossible for us to be together. He looked at me with pleading eyes. Emily, please, don't make me lose all hope. Okay. Nathan stayed in the hospital for 5 days. I went to visit him every day, just as he had asked. After he was discharged, I didn't contact him again until the night before the wedding. Nathan messaged me again. Emily, tomorrow is our wedding day. You've hinted at this many times before, but I've never been able to give you an answer. Now, I'm finally ready, but you don't want it. Even if there's only a 1% chance, I won't give up. I'll wait for you at the wedding, forever. Early the next morning, I dragged my suitcase to the airport. The plane slowly lifted off, reaching an altitude of 40,000 meters. All my feelings for Nathan, whether it was love or hate, at that moment, it all became the past. I had always dreamed of traveling the world, but I had always put it off because I didn't have the money or the time. Now, I finally had the chance to let go of everything, concentrate on traveling, enjoy my own life. In the past 4 years, I have traveled to hundreds of countries. I have witnessed countless magnificent views and beautiful mountains and rivers. The last stop was Greece. I experienced an earthquake of magnitude 7.2. In an instant, buildings collapsed. Many people were injured or even lost their lives. At that moment, I understood. The power of mankind is so small in the face of nature. No matter how hard we try, we cannot change it. This earthquake made me think clearly about something, so I ended my trip. I returned to New York. Looking out the window at the familiar streets, the past that I had deliberately forgotten once again came to mind. Now, I can only feel emotion for the past. I went to the cemetery first. I paid my respects to my mother. Standing in front of her tombstone, I told her about the interesting things I had encountered during my world travels. Mom, I'm doing well now. I've also found someone I want to spend the rest of my life with. I'll bring him to see you later. Emily, I heard a shout. I turned around. Nathan was running towards me. He gave me a tight hug. He said excitedly, Emily, you're finally back. I've been waiting for you. In the past 4 years, I haven't missed a single day without thinking about you. His voice trembled slightly. Emily, I've been planning our wedding for 4 years. Will you marry me now? I reached out and placed my hand against Nathan's chest. I pushed him away. I came back to get married. Nathan's eyes and eyebrows suddenly lit up with joy. But not with you. Nathan's smile suddenly froze. He asked Emily, what do you mean? At that moment, a tall man with a bouquet of lilies in his hands slowly walked over. He bent down and gently placed the lilies in front of his mother's tombstone. Nathan looked at him in surprise and asked, Daniel. Daniel reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder. His gaze turned to Nathan and asked, Lynn, are you still harassing my wife? In the year after I sold my company's shares, Nathan and Daniel, 2 strong leaders, began to clash frequently. Since Nathan held fewer shares than Daniel, he lost the final decision-making power. In the end, he decided to withdraw his shares and get the money. He started his own company. His golden age was over. The company he had poured all his heart and soul into was now barely making a third of its previous profits. It was just barely surviving. Daniel's Lin Zong at this moment was already considered to be giving him face. Nathan looked surprised. Emily, how could you be Daniel's wife? You don't know that he's already registered for marriage abroad. The wedding is next month. I nodded. He and I registered in Greece together. Next month will be our wedding. Nathan took a few steps back. His face was full of surprise. Daniel's marriage certificate was issued to you. How is this possible? I laughed. Nothing is impossible. If you have time, you are welcome to come to our wedding. During the 4 years of my world tour, I met Daniel 4 times. In unfamiliar countries, it's always a pleasant surprise to run into someone you know. Each time we met, we traveled together, sometimes for 4 or 5 days, sometimes for half a month. There's no denying it. When I'm with Daniel, I do feel a fluttering in my heart. But the failure of my last relationship took a painful toll. Those memories are still vivid. So I chose to keep this fluttering in my heart. Until Greece, we experienced the earthquake together, trapped in the ruins for 2 days and nights. At that time, we both felt that we would not survive. Daniel suddenly confessed to me. He said that every time we met in the past 4 years, he actually deliberately arranged it. He likes me, but he can also see I have been hurt before. I don't want to get involved in a relationship now. So he doesn't want to force me either. Now our lives are uncertain. He doesn't want to bury this relationship in the ground. He doesn't want to regret it in the next life. Just like he said, whether we live or die is still uncertain. I also decided to face my heart. Daniel, if we can escape this time, I will marry you. In the end, we were both saved. On the day we were saved, Daniel and I immediately registered our marriage in Greece. He said this is the starting point of our marriage. After returning home, he will hold the most grand wedding for me. After paying my respects to my mother, Daniel took me to meet his parents. They took me very seriously. From then on, I was at peace preparing to be a bride. In the meantime, Nathan never came to see me again. On the day of the wedding, I saw him again. He had lost a lot of weight. He looked tired. I didn't think he would actually come to my wedding. Before the ceremony began, Nathan came backstage. He stared at me in my wedding dress. His eyes were slightly red. Finally, he asked, "Emily, are you happy?" I smiled and asked him, with a big smile on my face, "I'm very happy." "Nathan, we have to look forward. The past is behind us. Only those who have experienced life and death can truly cherish the present." In front of everyone, Daniel and I promised each other to be faithful to each other for the rest of our lives, never to part. A year later, I gave birth to a daughter. Since my mother passed away, I finally have another family member in the world who is related to me by blood. Now I am surrounded by love. A few years later, I saw a news report. Nathan's company had gone bankrupt due to operational problems. All his assets were seized. On TV, Nathan's profile looked particularly desolate. At that moment, a hand gently wrapped around my waist from behind. Daniel was hugging me from behind. He asked softly, "Do you want me to help him?" I shook my head. From a long time ago, Nathan's affairs had nothing to do with me anymore.